Great. So we'll go around and introduce ourselves, but you, as part of this webinar, get to hear not only from staff, but you get to hear from a micro and seed grant recipient and from Runman about his journey. Um, but I'll kick it off. I'm Amy Bastian. I oversee grants and programs for startup founders here at NC Idea. Alan?
I'm Alan Younger, and I'm glad to be with you today. It's hard to believe we're back again for grant information sessions. Anyway, I lead our programming effort here at NCID, and I look forward to getting to know you all.
Lee?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lee Blancato. I'm a program manager here on the grants team at NC Idea. Thank you all for joining. I hope we're able to answer all of your questions that you have regarding the application today. So yeah, thanks for being here and listening in.
And Runman, I know you'll be kind of sharing your story a little bit later, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Rumbin. I'm the founder and CEO of Scale Social AI. We were a recent micro and seed recipient.
All right. Well, so today you'll actually be hearing from all of us, but at different times. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen in a second. And we will be, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we'll either, whoever's not talking may answer them. We also may answer them live, but we usually have time to get to all questions. So we may just not get to them exactly as you ask them, especially if it's something that's going to be covered later on. But all right, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, does that look good, Lee? Okay, great. All right. Welcome, everyone. Yes, as Alan said, even though this is the spring cycle, we are ready and kind of to share this opportunity with you. All right, so for today, as I said, Lee, Alan, and I will be sharing from the point of view of some of the aspects from NC Idea about the programming and the grants. And Runman will be sharing his story as a micro and then seed grantee and multiple time applicant as well. But please, while all of us know this information really well, if there's something you're not clear on, feel free to put this your question in the Q&A. Oh, and I should also mention, we're recording this, so this recording will probably go up on our website tomorrow, as well as the deck. So if you wanted to share this with somebody, or if you have to drop off early, all this information will be available on our website. And if you go to our website now, ncidea.org, there's an orange bar across the top. It's like learn more about seed and micro. If you click that, you go to a page with a ton of resources, and that is where this deck and recording will be starting probably tomorrow. So if you all are joining us today, you probably have at least heard of NC Idea. You made it through the registration process, but you may not know too much about us. High level, we're an independent private foundation that supports entrepreneurship in North Carolina. We just in last year in 2025 celebrated our 20th anniversary. And so we have been working to strengthen the North Carolina economy by directly supporting startup founders across the state, as well as organizations that are doing really great work in communities across the state. We're in the economic development space, so we track pretty typical economic development metrics through our annual survey to our companies, as well as tracking some other data. So since starting to give grants in 2006, 471 grants have been awarded to 437 companies. From our data, 68% of these companies are still active or have been acquired. They have created more than 4,000 jobs, and they have raised over 876 million in total funding. And that does not include the amount that the acquisition amount. If we include that, for those that we know, most companies, it's private, what they're acquired for, but it's over $1 billion. And 83 of those companies have raised more than $1 million, and close to 40 have raised more than $5 million. And we always say this is a conservative estimate because we don't get every single grantee. update from every single grantee. So we definitely say this is on the conservative side. So that was high level and the idea and the impact of micro and seed. There's a lot more about NC Idea's work across the ecosystem, as well as the work of our partners across the state, as well as great information about our micro and seed grantees on ncidea.org. So please, if you haven't, check out the information about micro and seed, but also the information about our partners and our companies to see just a lot of great work that's going on around the state. All right. So you are here to learn about micro and seed. So we will definitely spend the rest of the time talking about that. So seed and micro or micro and seed, they are grants that support startup founders across the state. And these founders are leading early stage but growth-oriented companies that are demonstrating a clear path to scale. A lot still to figure out, but they're being led by founders that really want to grow a very large company. Ideally, they have identified or are in the process of identifying a really large problem, as well as maybe having some type of sustainable competitive advantage. To be these very large company, often founders are planning to raise venture capital, or they have, or in the process of identifying and clarifying a path to become a multi-million-dollar company, to be $10 million plus at some point down the road. And we'll talk a little bit more about that timing. We are industry agnostic. So our companies look quite different. And if you, again, go to ncidea.org and read any of the information about our micro and seed grantees, clicking on that like hamburger menu and clicking on the link for companies, you'll see stories about all of our micro and seed grantees. And through that, you'll really get a sense of the type of companies and founders that we support. We are, again, in the economic development space in North Carolina. So we give grants to startups growing their companies in North Carolina. These companies don't necessarily have to have been incorporated or started here. Like if you're a founder that's relocated here recently, that's fine. But you're planning on growing and building your company and headquartering it here in North Carolina. So there need to be founders residing in North Carolina. And one of the ways that we identify North Carolina companies, or verify, I should say, because companies are so early, we don't look at tax returns or things like that, but we do look at all publicly available materials. During the application process, you'll see that we ask for a website, we ask for the LinkedIn profiles of the founders. We look at all of that. We look at social media accounts, and we notice if the information that we see on those sites or on the website is different than what is supplied in the application. It's a disconnect for us. So if you have recently relocated here, just make sure that your materials, your LinkedIn profile, your website, all that reflects that you are a North Carolina company. There's a full list of companies that we generally say are out of scope, based on the types of companies that we're looking for and their potential to scale. We always say visit ncidea.org for a complete list, but micro and seed are grants for for-profit companies. Our Engage grants and our ecosystem grants that support startup activities, more for organizations supporting founders. Those can be for nonprofits, but micro and seed are for for-profit companies. A lot of like traditional staffing event companies, event and venue management companies, trucking, hauling and storage, lifestyle companies, and local service-oriented businesses are typically not a fit for micro and seed. Or if they're companies that have a really high capital requirements and a really long way to commercialization. One of the examples that we give that often tends to be within the pharmaceutical, someone starting a pharmaceutical company. There's a lot of money needed, and our $10,000 or $50,000 typically may not make as much of an impact. So oftentimes once a company realizes that or verifies that they are eligible for micro seed, then they decide which grant to apply for. Probably you potentially may need to spend more time with this versus what you hear beyond what you hear in this webinar. So again, there's more information on our website. But for micro, it's $10,000, and we pair this with mentorship and programming to help companies validate assumptions and kind of develop that scalable business model. So these companies still need to develop some proof of concept or validate some part of their business. but there's a clear founder commitment, even if they are just working part-time on the startup, to build a very large company. And there are indications from the customer discovery they've done or other work that they're on a path to get some VC investment within about 4 years or be $2 million annual revenue within 7, with the potential to scale to $10 million plus. So again, founders really looking to grow a very large company, again, through either bootstrapping or through VC, but are still kind of verifying some part of their business model. For those companies that would be more competitive for seed for $50,000, we make this available for companies that have seen some initial traction in their initial target market and have a clear kind of business case and can show the business impact of how that 50K can really help extend the runway for that company. And for seed, there is a full-time founder commitment. There needs to be a full-time founder living in North Carolina by the time the grant is awarded. And in the spring, that would be in May. So typically, we say that companies that are competitive for seed have less than 250K in annual revenue or investment outside of friends and family or grants. Seed and micro kind of play in the spot between like you've done some work to move to validate some parts of the business, but if you're already doing well enough where you've gotten some investment or you have a good enough revenue, our grant makes less of an impact. So we're kind of our impact in the state is in this stage where you have done some initial work figuring things out. For seed, you have some initial traction, but if you already have a certain amount of revenue or investment, we see our 50K having less of an impact, and we wish you well. Definitely check out our website. We list the ranges of revenue from our recent seed and micro grantees. That 250K is different for food and beverage companies. That's actually raised to 500 because from what we've learned from past grantees and our advisors is that there can definitely still be an impact to food and beverage companies that are on a path to scale, but have revenues up to 500,000. So if you're seeing that you're eligible for micro or seed, you're starting to think about which one to apply for, and you're wondering, is this the grant cycle for you? And if you don't apply this cycle, when would there be a next cycle? We do have 2 grant cycles a year, and we are fortunate enough to know that we will be able to do 2 grant cycles a year for the coming years. We have a spring and a fall, and our micro and seed grant applications open and close at the same time. So as a founder, you do have to decide which one to apply to each cycle. You can only apply to either micro or to seed in a cycle. If you'd applied to seed in the fall and realized, oh gosh, I didn't move forward and maybe I don't have quite the traction to be competitive for seed yet, micro might be a better fit. It's totally fine to apply to micro this cycle. You just can't do the same, more than one application per cycle. We award 15 micro grants per cycle. We have awarded 240 since we launched micro in the spring of 2018. A goal for our micro program was that it would help some companies be competitive or understand if they could be competitive for seed. So about 31% of our micro grantees have progressed to at least the seed semifinals, and 14% of our micro grantees have gone forward to receive seed grants in future cycles. Oops, sorry. And for seed, we do 6 grants per cycle, and we have awarded 231 since 2006. Right. And I will now turn it over to Lee. So let me stop sharing.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Sorry, I was answering some questions in the Q&A. So thanks everybody for your questions there. Please keep asking them. And I know I saw some hands go up. Unfortunately, we cannot take questions that way. So please direct any questions that you have to the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to continue answering them there. So let me get my slides up. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay. Amy, is that showing okay for you? Perfect. Okay, so now we'll get into the grant cycle timeline. So you just have a better sense of when things are due, when you can expect to hear back from us, and all of that good stuff. So again, applications open on January 26th in just a couple of weeks on Monday morning at 9 a.m. and they'll close on February 23rd, also a Monday at 5 p.m. It is 5 p.m. sharp Eastern time, so make sure you're giving yourselves enough time to fill out and submit the application. Kind of our number one tip is start early and submit early. So please don't wait until the last minute to submit. Plan to submit the Friday before, just in case you run into any technical issues. Just keep that in mind. But you have about a month to actually get into the portal and submit your application. We award 15 micro grants in late April and 6 seed grants in mid-May. So our micro application timeline, it happens over 2 stages. So we have an initial application stage and a finalist interview stage. So again, applications will open in a couple weeks on the 26th and close on February 23rd. We typically get between 140 and 190 initial applications. We have a review period kind of during the first few weeks of March, and we narrow down that list of applicants to about 30 finalists. So everyone will be notified on March 27th if you're moving forward in the process or not. And if your company is eligible and meets our eligibility requirements, you will receive reviewer feedback, even if you don't advance to the finalist stage. From there, we have our finalist interviews during the weeks of April 6th through the following Wednesday on the 15th. Those are virtual interviews, 35 minutes. As the applicant, you will prepare a 10-minute pitch. And NC IDEA staff, it's the folks on this call, me, Amy, and Alan will ask questions for about 25 minutes just to better understand your company. From there, we narrow down that finalist list of about 30 finalists to 15 grant recipients, and we notify everyone on April 24th of if you're receiving a grant or not. All right. So the micro grant recipient timeline. So once you're awarded the grant in late April, during the month of May, we have a kickoff meeting for programming and your grant. You'll finalize your grant agreement. And then during the months of June through August, that's when you actually participate in the virtual micro programming, which Alan is going to talk about in a minute. And then your actual grant period is from June until December. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about what you would use the funds for, what milestones you hope to achieve over the grant period. Really be thinking about the June to December timeframe for this year when you're filling out your application. We disperse the grant in 2 tranches. So we have the first tranche payment of $7,500 kind of right when you sign your grant agreement, typically in June, and your second tranche payment will be 2 months later. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it to Alan to talk a little bit about microprogramming.
Thank you so much, Lee. And like she said, I have the privilege of working with the grantees during a period of time where we're going to make sure that they get off to a really good start in their businesses. And also, they'll be more likely to be competitive for the seed grant. That's what programming is all about, helping those who choose to apply be much more competitive when they do apply for the seed. And you can be like Runban, who received the micro grant and continued to build his business in a wonderful way. And then when his company applied for the seed, he was ready. So there are 5 components of our programming that I want to talk to you a little bit about. The group sessions. The program consists of one-on-one sessions as well as group sessions. The group sessions focus on customer discovery. We want to make sure that everybody has a really good start in reaching your target customer. And then in addition to that, we have fireside chats with different founders. Those companies that are a little bit further along, those companies that have already received the micro, and in some cases the seed grant, in some cases both. We want to make sure that all of our grantees have an opportunity to interact with them and find out how they got there, not only to receive the seed, but how they got there to where they are in their company. Also, we incorporate into our programming fundraising education. And we want to make sure that if that is the path that you choose, that you're going to be much more likely to be successful in reaching out to different funders and interacting with them, providing the information that they need so they can invest in you. Also, we incorporate into our group programming presentations on marketing and media relations, because that's a big part of having a successful company and communicating to others what your company is all about. And then we also have a good discussion of the use of advisors for your individual companies. And also we talk about the ecosystem and how different resources can be really helpful to you being successful with your companies. In addition to the group sessions, we do have what we call Mentor Madness. That's an opportunity for grantees to meet with a variety of people outside of NC IDEA who have said, we want to help others to be successful. So we want you to interact with them during the Mentor Madness sessions that are part of our group programming, as well as any connections that you might make outside of our sessions. So we are glad to have Mentor Madness as a key component of our programming. Also, at the end of the programming, you will report out to the other colleagues who received a grant in your cohort, as well as you'll report to staff, here's how programming has made a difference for you, and here's what some of your next steps are, and here's some of the help that you need from us. So we're really happy to hear our grantees to tell us where they are as programming is concluding. And you can go on to the next slide. And I want to tell you what your commitment is. Over the course of 8 weeks, you're committing to meet with us in this group setting, typically on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. We have a couple sessions that might not be on a Tuesday or Thursday from 9:30 to 11, but generally this is what you're committing to. And so prior to starting this, we want to make sure that everybody clears their calendar, so to speak, for these sessions so that you can get the most out of it. These sessions are recorded, so if you have to miss because of another engagement or whatever, you're able to keep up with the cohort and continue to grow your companies. Additionally, we incorporate into the programming time for you to have interviews with and to talk with various potential customers of yours, so that you can make sure that what you're building is exactly what the market needs. In addition to that, I mentioned the group programming in a lot of detail. We also have one-on-one meetings that you'll interact with me or somebody else who's a part of the NC IDEA staff, and we want to make sure that we provide the resources that you need to be successful. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, so moving on to seed. So for the seed application, if you're interested in applying for seed, it has 3 stages to the application process. So just like micro, the application is open and closes at the same time. Then we have the first few weeks of March that we are reviewing those applications, and we're narrowing down the field from about 130 to 180 seed applications to about 20 to 24 semifinalists. So everyone will be notified on March 20th if you are advancing in the process or not. Same deal with micro. If your company is eligible, you will receive reviewer feedback, even if you're not advancing in the process. You do receive feedback at every stage. From March 20th to 30th, our semifinalists will receive their reviewer feedback and also have their applications back. That's their time to revise their application. So character count limits are opened up a little bit more. So you have more room to add more detail or maybe address reviewer feedback during that time. And then you will submit those semifinalist applications on the 30th. From the 31st through April 21st, you'll participate in due diligence interviews. So along with your semifinalist application, you'll submit references. We will have graduate associates who will do due diligence calls with you and your references. So that'll take place during that time. On April 24th, you'll find out if you're advancing to the finalist stage. So we narrow down our pool from about 24 semifinalists to 12 finalists. And those finalists will then prepare 10-minute final pitches. You will participate in a pitch scrub session to refine your pitch. And then those final presentations will be on May 8th in person in Durham. So you do need to be available in person on May 8th if you advance to the finalist stage. Those presentations are 10-minute pitches followed by 15 minutes of Q&A in front of our team of staff and reviewers. There's usually between 30 to 40 people in the room for those final presentations. And then we make the award announcement, or we notify all finalists on May 13th, and we award 6 grants for seed. The grant recipient timeline. During the month of June, you'll finalize your grant agreements. We'll talk through your budget and your milestones and finalize all of that. And we typically disperse your first tranche payment in June. Seed is broken out over 4 tranche payments, and usually it's over 6 to 10 months following when you receive the grant. So it's really up to our seed grant recipients, kind of what their tranche schedule will be. So it can really vary at that time. If you want to receive your 4 tranches over 6 months or over 8 months or over 10 months, that's really up to you. But we will work with you to determine that schedule. But so if you're interested in applying for seed, really think about June to December timeframe or even further when you're thinking about your budget and your milestones for the grant. All right, moving into application tips, and I might speed through some of these just so we have time to turn it over to Runbin, because I know he'll have a lot of really great insights to share. So getting started, so you can start today. The application templates are available on our website, so you can go ahead and download them and get started on answering some questions even before the application goes live in the portal. So you're welcome to get started today, and we definitely recommend that you do, because applications are thorough and they take time to fill out. There's no trick questions or any questions that you wouldn't expect, but we do ask a lot of questions about your business and about your team and about grant impact. So make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to fill it out and answer those questions thoroughly. We say that competitive applications take 10 plus hours to complete, including revisions and maybe receiving feedback from people who are proofreading your application. So make sure you're giving yourselves enough time to actually fill out an application and submit an application that really kind of demonstrate your company and the stage you are. So yeah, questions include questions about the founders, the team, business details, revenue, funding, grant impact, milestones, and use of funds. And every question asked is important. That's a big question that we get during office hours is what matters. It all matters. So make sure that you're giving adequate time to each section of the application, because it really gives us kind of a full look at your company and kind of where your strengths are, maybe where you need support, things like that. And we recommend, yeah, going ahead and downloading those application templates today. So really in the application, we want you to be able to show us that your company is ready to move to the next stage, that you're ready to take advantage of microfunding or seed funding to move your company forward. So we're looking at, do you have a capable team? Like, if you're a solo founder, are you connecting with supporting communities and advisors? Or if you are building out your team, who else are you including for additional support and guidance? That you are committed to building a scalable company, kind of beyond maybe a lifestyle company. You're really looking to grow and scale your company. And what recent momentum and traction have you had? If you've just gotten started, what have you done recently in the last 6 months to really move your business forward? Is that customer discovery efforts, kind of initial pilot testing or starting to grow your customers? Really, what are you doing to move your company forward and really be able to use funding in a meaningful way? The impact of the grant. So reviewers will assess the impact of the grant right now for this current grant cycle. Since we're lucky enough to be able to know that we'll have a grant cycle in the fall and next spring, we really want to get a sense of what companies are ready for the funding now and what companies will grant funding be impactful for now. So how will the grant funds, how will the programming if you're applying for micro, and how will the NC Idea network really help your company achieve what your business goals and milestones are over the next 6 months to move the business forward? Our grants are not research grants, so really focus on the business development aspects of the company and how you can really move your business and move towards scaling and gaining customers. What milestones do you plan to be tracking, and why is now the right time? Really think about these questions as you're filling out the application. Be honest. So we know that no applicant has everything figured out, right? We recognize you are all early stage startup companies and you're figuring things out as you go. And that's why we're here. We're here to kind of have that early impact on your companies and help you move your businesses forward. So don't treat the application like a sales pitch. We encourage you to be honest about, these are things that are going really well. These are things that we still have to work out, and this is how the funding will help us get there. We definitely want to see companies that are honest about their progress and honest about maybe some blind spots that they have and really how funding can be the most impactful for them. It's also really common for us to have reapplicants in this process. Let's say 40 to 50% of our applicants are applying again. So it's really important if you are applying for the second time or more, demonstrating your progress since your last application. We really want to see that you are moving your business forward, even if you haven't yet gotten funding from us. So how have you been advancing your company and how are you ready for funding now? That's something that we look to, and we can also reference your last application. So really be thinking about that if you're thinking about reapplying. What can I show to demonstrate that I've been advancing my company since my last application? So regarding AI tools, we understand that these are really helpful tools, and probably the majority of our applicants are using AI tools to help with the application. And we think that they can be really great in helping with research, understanding feedback, kind of being a starting point for how to answer specific questions. But AI cannot fill out a competitive application because AI is not you. So be sure that your input, your metrics, your data is being included in the application that you're submitting. So be clear and concise. Our application does have character count restrictions, but don't feel like you need to fill up to the maximum character count. If you can answer the questions in a clear and concise manner, just make sure that it's clear that we understand the problem you're trying to solve and your solution. So make sure that that is really clear and make sure that somebody outside of your company can read that and understand that. Clarity is key in filling out your application. So we definitely recommend having others review your application before you submit it for understanding clarity. So yeah, be as clear and concise as possible. So for the initial application, so micro has 2 stages to the application process and seed has 3. You're not going to be able to tell us everything, especially if you are a subject matter expert in what you're building. You probably want to be able to tell us everything and you just won't be able to. You don't have the character count. You don't have all of the questions. So just focus on, it's not, your goal with the initial application is not to win the grant. It's to get us interested enough to progress to the next round. So really just focus on what is most important to get the reviewer to say, I want to learn more about this company. Because there's not enough time to give us a PhD in your entire company. That's just not possible. So really focus on what can I share that'll get people interested to get me to the next round. So for the review team, I mentioned that all eligible applicants will receive reviewer feedback at every stage. The review team consists of NCIDEA staff, graduate associates at the seed level, and volunteer reviewers from across the state, which includes entrepreneurs, investors, our ecosystem partners, and subject matter experts. All of these folks are vetted by NCIDEA and onboarded by us and recommended to participate. And they all do sign confidentiality agreements and they disclose conflicts of interest. So for reviewers and providing feedback, they're all instructed to be constructive and actionable in their feedback. You may see, so at the seed stage for the initial application, you'll get 3 reviews. For micro at the initial application stage, you'll receive 2. You may see that your reviewers don't always agree with each other and maybe some conflicting pieces of feedback. It's because our reviewers are all coming at this process from different backgrounds and different thoughts. So really your task will be not to probably please every reviewer in the process, but really take things from the reviewers that really help you as you're revising your application, as you're thinking about the next application, things like that. And reviewers may focus on different aspects of the application in their feedback. So just be open to different feedback, understand that reviewers don't always agree, and really take that feedback in the best way that works for you. Just some application tips. Again, don't wait until the last minute to submit. We recommend going ahead and getting started early and really planning to submit a few days before the deadline, if not sooner, just to avoid any potential technical issues, anything like that. We don't want you to miss out on applying this cycle because your computer froze or something else happened. So go ahead and plan to submit early. Watch out for just simple spelling and grammar errors. Totally understand we're all human, it happens, but if there are a lot of spelling and grammatical mistakes, it can really take the reviewer out of the application and have it be really hard to focus. So just look for those errors as you're revising your application. save the online application often, just to avoid any issues of losing your information, anything like that. We recommend working offline in the application template and kind of moving information over as you complete answers, but give yourselves enough time to move the information into the online portal and make sure that you're saving your work often. And if you are working on the application with a co-founder or with a team member, don't log into the portal at the same time on different browsers because you may override the other person's work. So just something to keep in mind there. All right, and that is it for me. Next steps are, again, go to our website. There's a ton of information. If you go to our website, the orange bar across the top will take you to the Spring 2026 Grant Cycle resource page. Sign up for virtual office hours with us if you have any additional questions. You can download the application templates there. The application portal will go live in a couple of weeks, but definitely visit our website, get those templates, learn more about eligibility in the program. And yeah, we're here to answer any questions at programs@ncidea.org. And with that, that's it. So I'll pass it back to Amy.
And actually, Runfin, we're going to turn it over to you. Sorry, it's okay. Would you
Sounds
mind
great.
stopping sharing, Lee? Yes. Thanks.
Can I share my screen too?
Oh, yeah, if you've got stuff to share. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I built this like 50-page PowerPoint presentation. No, I'm just kidding. Let me share my screen. It's gonna be
Yeah,
like note-based. Is it showing up?
it is. Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect. So it's a real pleasure to be here, mainly because one, we're huge fans of the team, and NCIDEA has given us so much. They've taken us into the ecosystem and really gave us a home. And so we feel it, and it means a lot to us as a company. So I prepared some general notes. I think, outside of the presentation format, this is more just for me to voice over and share a little bit more as to how our timeline looked, what our funding situation looks like, where the company is today, and just get like into the brass tacks of, my suggestions and recommendations to the team. We're still learning a ton every day. And so by no means this is like what you should do, but merely as suggestions. In terms of our timeline, we were initially incorporated as a single member LLC back in May of 2024. This is when we first started this project. And we were just, building a prototype and trying things out in the very early days. We then later on applied for micro, and I think we were a part of the winter batch in 2024. One thing that most people don't know about, we actually applied multiple times. We got rejected, I think, at least once. I try not to remember it, but we actually got really, really good feedback from the initial application, and which we took and actually iterated, which then later allowed us to qualify for micro in winter of that year. After we got into micro, we also participated in the FCA Accelerator program back then. But then by January of 2025, which is just a year ago, we officially incorporated ourselves as a Delaware C Corp. And so I think there were some questions around like incorporation and whether you need to have a company to apply or not. You can in fact have no company when you apply for micro, but that incorporation process can be a part of that trajectory even during micro. And then by the time we finished our Delaware C Corp incorporation in January, we then qualified for seed in May of that year. In terms of funding, it's actually crazy when I think back. Non-dilutive grants actually made up nearly half of our total early funding. It is incredible to be able to do that. And I don't think there are many ecosystems that can give entrepreneurs this sort of flexibility. Part of the reason is because when you are raising money from investors, you are effectively giving away portions of your company. And the further you can sort of push that off, the stronger of a position you will be in when you raise funding, right? So it's a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword, but I certainly believe that you should be getting as much non-dilutive funding as you can in the earliest phases of your company, because it also allows you to experiment a lot with the early iterations of your product with your concept. And so if I play out all of the, sort of a timeline here, $85,000 of it is non-dilutive. We then raised $110,000 from friends and family and angels. And that was April of last year. And then we officially closed an actual VC pre-seed round by November of last year. And so again, like just being able to push that out and only raise funding when we really do need it, that gave us a lot more comfort as a team. Where the company is right now, we crossed $1 million in revenue October of last year, and we're on track to do $5 million this year. We have 14 team members, 5 full-time, all NC-based, which is something that we're super proud about, and this is forecasted and continue to grow. We're actually looking for a new office space. It's going to be in Raleigh somewhere. And then we also have 9 part-time team members across Canada, Hong Kong, Malaysia, San Francisco, and a few other places. The company is growing at a point and at a pace where we are actually going to be skipping our seed fundraising and we'll be going into Series A. And we're actually in pre-diligence with a couple of Series A investors right now. Mentioned before, we got rejected at the first round. Please don't give up. It's really just a great way to get feedback. And then you can think a little bit more deeply about the company that you're building, what you're working on. So getting into the tips section, and then we can, I think there's a Q&A piece, right? So we can then open it up for the Q&A. Really talk to your customers. I think the customer focus is the most important thing that guided our company. We approached the space by assuming that we know nothing. And skipping ahead a little bit, it's very easy. So I was trained as a product person. It's very easy to fall in love with your product. And when you fall in love with your product, you kind of ignore everything else. So my recommendation here is don't do that. Instead, fall in love with your customers and their problems. And what that means, though, tangibly, is being able to build something and get real data very quickly, right? So that allows you to prove your hypothesis. So what's working and what isn't working. And especially in this day and age where you have a lot more of the AI native companies, your velocity in being able to get in-market feedback and data, so being able to iterate on that cycle, is more important than anything else. And then along with that, your ability to earn your first dollar and then grow that to your first $10, $100, $1,000. We treated that as a tangible way to justify the value that we bring to the table, right? What that doesn't necessarily mean is pricing, and it has nothing to do with pricing. In the earliest day of Scale Social, I went to restaurant owners and said, hey, you know what? I would do this thing for you. Just give me $1 for a month worth of work, right? Are you willing to just swipe your credit card and give me $1 right now? It's a lot easier for you to find a way to grow that $1 to $10 and then eventually to the right pricing structure, right? What you need early on is just any way to have some kind of a commitment. One thing that we never did is giving things away for free, because free is easy and free also connotates that it's not valuable. And this was referenced a little bit earlier, but all of us probably still remember the scientific method from elementary school. I think back to last year all the way to now, and even now, we're just in this constant motion of exercising the scientific method. You have a hypothesis, you design an experiment, you run the experiment, you get the data, and then you come back, right? And so again, being able to get real data to really understand what's working and what isn't working matters so much more in the earliest phases. And it blows my mind in how many teams I've come across, teams that I've advised as well, where they're so focused in building the product, they kind of forget what to measure, right? What's working, what isn't working, what does success look like? There isn't really an answer to that. And so being guided by the scientific method is actually really important. Again, data should tell you a lot, and it allows you to also make very informed decisions. Then we have a few like more sort of a nuanced set of feedback or tips. Showing up matters a lot. This is a great ecosystem. I think this gets to the last point. I personally being in New York, in San Francisco, I've been overseas in Hong Kong. Every startup ecosystem is different, and this is truth. The North Carolina ecosystem is one of the most collaborative ecosystems I've been in. There isn't a lot of this like secret, hey, I'm competing with you. Everyone's kind of much more open to want to help you. And so the notion of paying it forward, this mentality, this culture is real. And so my advice to all of the folks who are going to be a part of this call, and I certainly exercise it, is just ask for help. Ask for help from whoever, wherever you can, and you'll be surprised at how many people will come and say, hey, you know what, I can connect you to so-and-so, right? And a lot of that magic, that early magic comes from these interactions. And then last but not least, we really treated the check-ins, the milestone check-ins as part of micro and also seed as a way to see Amy, Lee, and the team as accountability coaches, right? So I guess this is more of a personal referendum too, but like I've always liked to have someone holding me accountable and, jokingly whip me a little bit, right? To figure out what's my goal. Am I tracking close to that goal? And if I hit it, then yeah, it's great. If I don't hit it, you kind of have to understand why you don't hit those goals, right? And so hopefully these tips are going to be helpful for anyone who's a part of this information session. I'll make my LinkedIn and also my connections available to you guys as well. Again, giving back, right? Or paying it forward. So if there's anything I can do to be helpful to you all, let me know as well. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. So I guess this is where I can also open up for questions. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Ranbin. And I will say this is great. This is the most questions that people have ever submitted, I think, in an webinar that we've done, and I love it. So if I've been like, I feel like my face has been like looking very concentrated, it's because I'm like just trying to get Lee as well. I think trying to get through as many questions as possible. But there was one on Ranbin, someone was asking like if you have applied in the past. Okay, this is exact. There's so many questions to wade through. So that if you, sorry, if you fail to be awarded and that you want to apply again, how do you, it's important to explain progress since it was last application. How is this best done? Should we directly carve out the space in the answers to call it progress? How did you approach it? Because you had applied to, I think, seed, didn't get it, and then decided to apply to micro. So how did you kind of incorporate either feedback, like this is what we've learned, you obviously want to talk about where your company is now, but how do you kind of just address the like, this is where I was and this is where I am now to make yourself more competitive?
Yeah, so one thing that was super valuable for me when I was looking into which of the funding stage we applied to is I reached out to Tina Tang and actually interviewed her and asked for advice. So again, it goes back to the advice I share with the folks here is that actually a lot of the founders who've gone through the grant cycles have a lot of really great insights. And so grabbing a coffee with them is probably the best thing you can do. And for us, we realized very quickly that we were not at a point where we can qualify for seed. And the feedback that we got is, hey, how do you get to your first dollar, right? How do you get to your first customer? Or have you talked to 50 customers? And even if they weren't willing to give you, a dollar for your services, at least you understand what the problem you've set out to address. And so we started indexing very heavily into customer discovery as a result of that. And that gave us a lot of learnings early on. These nudges aren't just to make you do more work. It's actually very, very practical. The NC ecosystem is also very different from your typical SF New York ecosystem, whereby, you can go out and sell people on an idea. It's very practical here, right? Like, are you actually building something, and do you understand your customers concretely, not just I'm a fancy founder and I have a great idea. And so I think that there's a cultural difference, which, I certainly appreciated.
Yeah. And so, Rumban, there have been a couple questions around, you know, uh, we're building an agentic AI company. Would that be eligible? And yeah, it could be, but I think it goes down to say but what business are you building? So how do you I mean, you just said it. It's like, I mean, it's a business competition. So um, how would you, I guess, I know you've already kind of touched on this, but for founders, how do they just really, I guess, explain to them, like focusing on the business, not just the technology. Like you said, it's very practical, and that's the way we view it here too. But maybe just kind of reiterating that or talking a little bit more about um, what that means in terms of like the practical things about your business.
Yeah, so we think about it in minimally releasable products or viable products. And so being a software company, it's slightly different from other types of businesses, right? And recognizing that the ecosystem has a much more diverse set of businesses out there. But for software companies, it's actually very important for us to be able to build something and just launch it. And we actually pivoted at least 4 or 5 times. And when I say pivot, it doesn't mean, hey, we're going to tweak this feature. We built something, and when we pivoted, we threw that whole thing away and we started from scratch, right? And so not being so married to your vision and idea and or just this thing that you built is, I think, the most important thing for us because you're constantly learning. The reality is nobody really knows what's going to work, what isn't, right? Unless you're, I don't know, even if you're a decade-long industry veteran, you still kind of are learning new things.
Yeah.
And so being able to adapt to the feedback and make adjustments, I think, is critical in the early phase.
Brendan, there was a question. Um, Someone specifically thanking you for all your advice. And they're curious, what were the things Micro taught you that allowed you to grow the company to achieve, that allowed you to achieve being granted seed? Because you went right from Micro to seed. We often, for companies that do that, sometimes there's a couple cycles in between, but your company went right to Micro to seed. So I guess what were you able to, are there anything that you can specifically tie back to like your time during Micro or the connections during Micro or what that 10K allowed you to do?
Yeah, so the 10K actually got us a long way. It's amazing. Um, so I think it allowed us to have the comfort to know that it supports the product development cycle that we have in motion. So first of all, it funded a lot of the building motion. I have a technical co-founder, so both of us, we didn't make great salary, but hey, it's enough for us to actually get this thing out of the door, right? And still allowed us to experiment. So yeah, like after we threw away version 1.0, we still have the capacity to build version 2.0, right? So having that room and comfort makes a huge difference. And then I personally really enjoyed the check-ins, right? So with every check-in, we will report back on customer milestones and revenue milestones. And I think being super indexed on, okay, we just made $1 last month. How do we make $10? How do we make $100? And just setting these hard, sometimes ambiguous, sorry, not ambiguous, but just like arbitrary milestones. At least there's a stake on the ground for you to drive towards. And so these check-ins make it very meaningful because then I have to say, okay, well, Amy, did we really do $100 this month, right? And if we didn't, why didn't we? What didn't work? And so that accountability, I think, makes a huge difference. Because it's lonely, right? Building something, either you're a solo founder or even with a co-founder, it's extremely lonely.
And Ramon, you'd mentioned about going through the FCAT program, and you've definitely in your team have taken advantage. You talked about the ecosystem a lot. I think we sometimes get questions like if someone has been through an accelerator program and then they get micro, like, oh, would I still have to go through the programming? And you do. It's part of it. But can you, since I'm sure some of the program you got in your different accelerators, there's been some overlap, but can you, as a founder who's been through multiple programs, can you talk about how that has, like, what the benefit was to you, and even if sometimes the programming was similar?
The network makes a huge difference. So just for context, I've been a part of the FCAP program. We're a part of NC IDEA. We've gone through GROW. We've also gone through Riot. We basically apply to every single accelerator you can possibly think of in North Carolina because we're building here. And programming is one aspect of it. It's really the cohort that you come in touch with and the network that you are connected to, right? And so Grow's network is slightly different from Riot's network, which is slightly different from NC Idea's network. And so just being a part of this fabric, one, makes a huge difference. And then two, I've also seen a lot of, hey, we applied here, we got in, and then you just never show up. Well, it kind of defeats the purpose of applying, right? And so I think personally, showing up is more than half of the battle, right? Yes, you kind of have to exercise your judgment on being very conscious of the time that you spend because you're a founder. But again, like if you're going to grow here, people should know you. And I think showing up is just a part of that.
So that, okay, maybe one more question, but I want to be aware of your time too. Um, it said, oh, I think this is in about what you just said. So Rumban, was that to allow the proof of concept to test historical data with the micro to prove it out? Uh, oh, I'm not exactly sure if you understand what that means. And someone asked, what is FCAT? It was a fidelity accelerator run at the American Underground, but I think that's on pause for right now. So I don't think that is currently accepting new applicants.
That's right.
Yeah. Um, so we're kind of at time. What was I going to say? So again, I want to thank everyone who's putting in all these questions. I'm so excited for the applications. Just like we've had so many questions in the Q&A more than any other webinar. So I'm so excited for very invested founders who really want to understand how to have a good competitive application and what companies look like and who've received grants and questions for Runbin. And Runbin, thank you for continuing to
Thank
give
you.
back.
Yeah.
And again, as Lee had said during going through the slides, if you have any questions, go to ncidea.org, click that orange bar across the top. There are links there for the templates. There'll be links there to a lot of resources, including those office hour calls. So if you have something very specific about your company, you can email programs@ncidea.org or sign up for an office hour call. If you realize at some point, if you have an office hour call and you don't need it, again, please cancel it so you open that slot for someone else who could make use of it. And thank you all. Thank you, Runbin.
Thank you, Runbin. That was
Thank
great.
you.
Yes. All right, everyone. We look forward to your applications. Thanks for showing up.
Good luck,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.